Hi there, my name's Cara and here I am at beautiful Buddina Beach on Sunshine Coast, Gubbi Gubbi Land in Queensland, Australia. So I'm here today because water is the theme of this meditation. So water, what does it mean? Why? I've just been on a beautiful adventure to Avalon / Glastonbury in the UK, and I heard so many wonderful stories and visited so many interesting places, and one of the most important insights has been this concept of Faery consciousness. Fae meaning fairy, spelled Faery, as opposed to the fairies at the bottom of the garden that we've grown up to understand as a fairy tale, as something I guess that I would describe as being imaginary, as being something that's fun for kids to dream about but is not actually real. Well, when I went to Avalon, I went on a wonderful walk with a woman by the name of Dea, and she runs the Avalon Academy. You can check her out on Instagram. And she started to speak about the stories of Camelot, of King Arthur, Guinevere, and the sword Excalibur. Now, these stories never resonated for me as a kid. Some people love these stories. I know my mother is always talking about Camelot, but I didn't know this tale. Well, I did, but it didn't really grab me. I was nonplussed. But when I went on my beautiful partner's retreat, Stephanie Chanté-Leon, on her retreat to Avalon, actually the first time last year, this concept of fairy consciousness was introduced to me by Dea. And what that is, and it was very clear through her description, is that it's not something that's imaginary. This is a real thing, a real ancient partnership that once was between human and fairy. And the more reading I've done, I understand that there was a tree of knowledge, that was a tree of mortality, that gave us this understanding of death, life and death. And as a human, we're going to die. The flesh is going to die, but the light being that we are, innately, our light being origins, our stellar origins, are actually always immortal. And so there is another tree of immortality. And the idea is that fairy and human are born from the same race. Fairy consciousness has this capacity to be less dense and more stellar. Therefore, they were more elemental, and they move between the worlds, or can move between the worlds of the mortal, human, earthen, and also into lighter, higher frequencies. So there's this idea that Avalon is simultaneously sitting within Glastonbury, the land of Glastonbury in the United Kingdom that people drive through, a town, has a consciousness around it. And it could be said potentially that the entire world has a consciousness around it that is fairy consciousness. And so these ideas really intrigued me, and I wanted to somehow give them to you in a way that is somatic and embodied. And so I've decided to offer these meditations that will take you into the different spirals that I was introduced to when I was in Avalon, and especially when I was introduced to this story about King Arthur and Guinevere, because what I understand now is it's not really a story about a king and a queen. It's actually something much greater than that. And this is why I think certain stories remain to be told again and again, because there is something magical about them. They speak to our consciousness. They speak to how we can live on this earth in divine union. And what does that mean? So now, after this experience and some reading, I realized that sacred union is actually the union between our terrestrial reality and our starry, stellar origins, our light being origins that are eternal. And so we have this immortal reality and we have this mortal reality. And we are constantly trying to navigate the integration of those. And that is, we are inevitably in this sacred union of terrestrial, celestial beingness. And that is tricky. It's really tricky because we've been taught all about different values and priorities according to our material life. Understanding my consciousness, or understanding our one shared consciousness, our infinite consciousness, is something that really drives me. I'm super interested in it. So when I was offered this idea of Faery consciousness, and the idea that Fae are much more elemental, they're lighter, shining beings. So of course it is closer to this knowing feeling of interconnectedness with nature. So I think way back when, the original falling out between human and fairy has to do with the fact that humans disrespected nature. And I think also disrespected fairies. I think took advantage of them and took advantage of the hospitality that the fairies were offering through the well maidens. So I guess that's a wonderful place to start for this spiral, this sapphire spiral that is the water spiral. What I'd like to do is take us into a meditation that explores the sapphire spiral. The sapphire spiral is the first spiral in this adventure that we took, this walk that we took at the ruins of Cadbury Castle, where King Arthur and Guinevere were said to live. The element of water was one of the first and remains to be one of the most important nutrients that fairies gave to passers-by travellers in the wood. The well maidens would appear, fairy maidens, and they would give travellers big silver platters full of food and casks full of water, wine. And this was the way that it was. There was a partnership, an exchange, and this is really what humans received freely. These are stories, and you can allow it to resonate with you in any way that you wish. And then at one point there was a king who took advantage of these well maidens, and the story goes that these well maidens were raped. Now, as soon as I hear this story, it reminds me of ecofeminism. It reminds me of the idea that when we take more from the earth than our fair share, it could be said, or than is respectful and loving, when we intrude upon her, that there is a wounding. And it was said that after this intrusion and injustice happened, that the land went barren, that all of the well maidens that once were disappeared, and this relationship, this mutual loving relationship between human and fairy, was no longer in the way that it once was. There was a rupture. If we just move into what is, take a moment to rest into your own body and notice the density of your own body. So the weight of it. And allow that to anchor down into your pelvis, down into the surface beneath you. And realize and honor again that this cradle that I am sitting in is a cradle that gravity is a loving cradling into the earth beneath us. And this earthen nature of ours can relax into that as opposed to holding itself up and out. We can release all of our own bracing and melt into the earth and become aware of our fluid bodies, the fluidity inside the flesh. Even within the flesh, there is, we're 70 to 90% fluid. So our bodies are actually this ocean of awareness that melds with the ocean of awareness beyond this body. So allow yourself to breathe out and release the flesh, the weight of the flesh and bone. And we're not dismissing it. We're simply reimagining it as this 70 to 90% fluid space. And so as I remember that my eyes are fluid spheres, I can relax and rest them in a different way on the fluid sacks of fat underneath them that are the pillows for my eyes. I can imagine the nerves that reach from the backs of my eyes to the back of my head are lined in lubrication. In lubrication that is a kind of fluid that I have never met, and yet it's there doing this miraculous job of helping messaging move from my eyes to the base of my skull, where the cerebellum is, the center of our sensory knowing, of our sensory mind knowing. 70% of our neurons go from our body to this place, the cerebellum at the base of our skull, not to the prefrontal cortex, where there is so much focus on executive function and decision making. So I'm going to ask you to say thank you, thank you, thank you to the prefrontal cortex for all of the decision making, and let's rest into the base of the skull, where all of our sensory knowing, all of the involuntary tasks that are going on inside our bodies are being somewhat navigated from the base of your skull. And this base of your skull is like a beautiful coral underwater scene where there's layer upon layer, like a dress made of different layers. This cerebellum is a beautiful, beautiful structure, unlike any other in our body, it could be said. And so just imagine the base of the skull, those layers, multi-layers of this dress gently billowing in the water, gently billowing and releasing, billowing and releasing into fluid, just fluid reality. Allowing the bony aspects of your body to remember themselves as actually flexible, fibrous, filled with bellies full of bloody fluid that is actually generating, it's bubbling and generating all the time in the middle of our bones. The bone marrow is growing itself and sending itself through the bones. The bones are not this hard, inflexible. They are flexible and they are fluidy too. Then it's also fat there that enables them to be fluidy, flexible too. So just allow yourself to gently sway or move however you want, to remind yourself that there is fluid space more than there is hard space within you. and begin to embody this elemental fairy consciousness. What could I be? How could I feel if I was water? If I am water? If I am fluid in all of its beautiful outfits and disguises? How could I rest? How could I move? How could I go with the flow and rest? How light might I feel? How flexible might I feel? And you may even be able to notice a gentle sponging within your fluid space of your body. It may be felt through a vibration or a pulse, but there is an expansion and a condensing of the 32 trillion cells that we are, or 58 trillion as the research may say. Whatever, there's a lot. And they're breathing, these cells of ours that make our organs, our bones, and all of our fluids. They are breathing, they're expanding and condensing. And if you want to just open your eyes for a moment and get this sense of expansion and condensing that happens, that's happening without your effort. And it is opening and condensing. It's opening and receiving the nutrients, the communication. And it's being condensed and it excretes anything it doesn't need. And this cellular breathing is happening within fluid space. Your cells are breathing underwater. So just allow that to be something that you know is happening without any force. And you can rest in that knowing in your body. And now I'll take you on a little journey. You can rest into your fluid space and begin to see the sapphire, the color of the sapphire, a beautiful blue gem, the color of the ocean. And allow that color of the sapphire to disperse through your ocean of awareness and become the ocean. This beautiful sapphire color. And the sapphire spiral is known for its connection with Merlin, the wizard. Merlin, whose magic spans into ancient history and into the future at the same time, who is said to be a priest of Atlantean origins, who is said to be one of the moon temple priests. And Merlin's magic spans the past and the future and the now. Merlin's magic means that he, or this light being, could shapeshift, could live in any world, any dimension, at will. And also it's clear from the stories that Merlin's plans and strategies for making Arthur this great king, and for various other stories, that they didn't go to plan, and yet he was this great, or he is this great magician. And so I encourage you to see yourself as this great magician whose plans sometimes do work out for a period, and whose plans sometimes don't work out for a period. And this is the reality, changing and moving like the ocean, changing and moving. And sometimes we know what we want and we get it. And sometimes we want something other than what we get. And we don't know why, because we are only this cellular reality, this body in this moment, in this place right now. And in those moments when things don't go our way, we can trust that there is an ocean of cells bobbing, breathing, communicating, and that the greatest good is being found by all of us together. And this is our sign to rest back into the nature of our being, which is light, starry, immortal. We can trust that our knowing is infinite, that we are always abundant, joyful and peaceful. We are always that, and we are in a sacred union, a marriage with this mortal existence, which may look murky, it may look stagnant, and at times there is freedom as the sun shines through, and we are our starry, infinite reality once more. It is the opening and the closing of the great I, the remembering and the forgetting of who we really are. So I encourage you to remember who you really are by laying down into this ocean of awareness and enjoying the depths of the ocean. The more you rest yourself down deeper and deeper, there is stillness and silence that is the essence of our being. And allow a gentle smile to come to your face as you enjoy the simplicity of the stillness and silence that exists at the bottom of the ocean. And in the depths of the ocean, there emits an energy. Perhaps it is the energy coming from underneath the ground. It could be energetic ley lines underneath the earth that encourage your heart to pulse. In the opposite direction, we can float up through the waters and find ourselves caught in a current, moving to and fro, strongly or gently. We can even find ourselves up at the top of the waters, caught in waves, being thrown about. This is the truth of our material experience. It is this tossing and turning and surging and gentle lapping, and it is simultaneously this stillness and silence, whether it's at the depths of the ocean or whether it's in deep space. At both ends, in every direction, and it's true in every aspect right now. Here, Source resides. And the simplicity of this feeling, the joy of this feeling. In fact, it's not a feeling, it's our true essence. And it is always available to us, even when we feel shrouded by the darkest forest, by shrubbery that doesn't let us out. This stillness and silence is always present, eternally present. And so the Sapphire spiral reminds us of our own fluid existence, because it is so easy to forget it. It reminds us to be grateful for the water that we drink. Each time we take a sip of water, we can remember and thank the water for such an easy, ready resource that we have before us that nourishes us. Our body loves nothing more than water to quench its nutrition needs. So we can all say thank you, thank you, thank you to clean water that we are honoured to drink. Thank you to the well maidens. Thank you for sharing this magical resource with us. That we get to clean our bodies in. And as we remember our fluidity reality, we can remember our ability to shape shift, to flow with the water, but also to be like Merlin, who is a wizard, no doubt, in the stillness and the silence of our truth. And is a wizard, is a magician, who also fails at some particular attached outcome. But does he? Do we ever fail, or do we simply fail to see the greater picture? So spend some time feeling into this fluidity of water. Embody it, move with it. And see if this elemental reality is something that you can bring into your daily life when you find yourself becoming rigid, hardened, stubborn. As you open your eyes, see if you can bring this fluidity, if I can speak, fluidity into your day, into the rest of your day. And I'll visit again with the next spiral, the emerald spiral that intersects with the sapphire spiral. And I'll take you on another journey of stories and embodiment that I hope resonates with you as much as it resonates with me. Thank you.